I'd like to call this meeting of council for Tuesday, September 6th to order. First item is to adopt the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the September 6th regular meeting agenda as presented? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Hammett, all in favor? Before we adopt the agenda, my apologies, I have an amendment to add to it as a late item. Late item to the end, which is to change the administrators on the MasterCard account. May I have a motion to amend the agenda? Second, Councillor Hammett, all in favor? So carried. Amended agenda, all in favor? So carried. Get rid of that. All right, our next subject matter is the July 18th Committee of the Whole. May I have a mover to adopt the July 18th Committee of the Whole meeting minutes as presented, sir?
Okay, I'm sorry, may I indulge just an introduction?
Apologies. Yes.
This is my mother-in-law, Jean Tripp. She's here from the Niagara region. She lives in Ridgeway. She's going to celebrate her 85th birthday here with us, and we're just delighted to have her. So thanks for coming.
Welcome.
Jean.
Congratulations. Well, we didn't think our politics was that interesting. You came all the way from Ontario. Amazing.
I heard. Yeah, it's interesting.
Thank you.
And she intends some of the council meetings in Port Erie because she wants to know what's going on.
Well, after this one, I'm sure you'll be back here for more. All right. Again, welcome.
Thank you.
So may I have a motion to adopt the July 18th Committee of the Whole meeting minutes as presented? Councillor Hammett, Councillor Thompson, all in favor? So carried. May I have a mover to adopt the July 18th regular meeting minutes as presented? Councillor Tripp, Councillor Hammett, all in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. May I have a motion to adopt the August 24th, 2016 special to-go in-camera meeting minutes as presented? Councillor Hammett, Councillor Ross, all in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay, moving on to our written reports from council. Before I have a motion to receive the reports, I believe Councillor Butler has hers as verbal because she did not put hers in. So Councillor Butler, go ahead. We'll indulge you to give yours verbally.
I appreciate it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I had submitted a report, but I'm going to try and revise it here as I read it to be in compliance with Policy 308. So, although it has been a quiet summer for council, the city has had many wonderful events over the last couple months. From the fall fair to the car show and BMX competition in City Park, fly-in at the airport, the GFI and CanadaFest, it's been a busy summer. Although I was disappointed that the August meetings were cancelled, council did meet for an in-camera meeting regarding land and had a briefing from staff on a number of issues in August. It's always been my belief that it's in the taxpayers' best interest to have public contracts available for viewing. At an LGLA conference I attended in February, a representative from the Freedom of Information and Privacy Protection Act mentioned in his presentation that it would save them a lot of time and money if cities would post contracts on their webpage, because in his opinion, most contracts would ultimately be released in an FOI application. He suggested that cities disclose in their RFPs that contracts will be available to the public once they've been awarded. He didn't feel that this would discourage any organization from bidding. I think it would help keep costs down by encouraging competition and keeping governments accountable for their spending. As an initial step, I think it would be beneficial for council to have access to these contracts. For example, I'd like to compare the latest local contracts with previous contracts to see how competitive our local contractors are. It would be helpful for them for future bids to see what their competitors were paid. And I'd also like to put forward a notice of motion on this subject that I'm going to have to revise on the fly, but it'll come back at the next meeting as a proper motion. Whereas the City of Grand Forks is a public corporation representing its taxpayers, therefore be it resolved that all contracts be posted on the city website and all city RFPs contain a clause stating that contracts will be made available to the public. And I will leave it off there and not include the last part. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. May I have a motion to receive all the reports, written and verbal, as presented? Councillor Crowd, Councillor Ross. All in favor? So carried. Next item is the verbal report from the RDKB rep, which would be myself. At this point tonight, I have no report to present. So we move on to recommendations from staff for decision. Subject matter, council meetings, video recordings. The recommendation is that council continue with a media partnership regarding video recordings of council meetings and to reassess the topic over time. May I have a mover on that? Please, Councillor Thompson. Seconder, Councillor Tripp. Discussion. Councillor Butler.
Yeah, I just really appreciate Mr. Johnson's work coming out and volunteering to continue to take the meetings for us and then displaying them. I find it's a real asset to be able to go to his website and view the council meetings when I want to go back and look at what happened. And I know when our operational budget, our capital budget was presented this year, it was done in a briefing and Mr. Johnson wasn't here to video it, and I really miss being able to go back and look at that now and see what happened. So he's doing a great job. Over time, I would like to see us maybe head towards option 5, just for the fact that for security of our tapes, it would be nice to have them on the city server, city website, so that if anything did happen to Mr. Johnson, heaven forbid, that it could disappear if it's on someone else's website. It might not be there in perpetuity, and I would like to see that it is stored with the city for safety purposes.
Councillor Ross.
Yeah, I agree that we need to keep these recordings of the meetings in perpetuity, such as the House of Commons and the provincial governments do through Hansard, which are digital recordings. I don't think we need video recordings. We're not actors, we're elected officials. I don't like looking at a camera to speak. I like to look at the people who are sitting here and at my colleagues around the council table. So I would very much be more in favor of option 3, because we do not need video recordings. We just need audio recordings.
Councillor Hanna.
Yes, I see that we're here for a recommendation, and the recommendation is to continue with Mr. Johnson as long as he's willing to provide the service for us, and I really appreciate also the service that he does provide. If at some point he decides that he can no longer come and video them, I too would opt for option 5, the least expensive of them all, and keep so option 3?
No video.
Oh, no video. Okay, well, I'd still go for option 5. But in the meantime, I would like to see Mr. Johnson continue as long as he wishes. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
I know that at one time our council meetings were broadcast live on Shaw Cable, and then technology being that changed, and they weren't able to do that. There are people who do watch our council meetings on Mr. Johnson's website, and I think if we did something less than that, we would have a lot of people upset. I agree that the House of Commons and the provincial legislature do answer through audio only, but they do broadcast when they're sitting. Only certain portions of it, yes, as as we would, only certain portions of the regular meetings and committee as a whole. So I would want to see us hopefully be able to continue with the simple webcams and hosting it on our website, so that people who are interested that can't necessarily get out to come to a meeting can still watch and see what is going on with their city council.
All in favor of the question? Anyone opposed? So carried. Moving on to corporate services, subject matter volunteer appreciation night, call for nominations, policy number 204. Recommendation, council provide notice to the public calling for nominations from the public for exceptional volunteer service in the city of Grand Forks in accordance with council policy number 204. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Ross, Councillor Hammett. No discussion. This is Councillor Tripp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is anybody allowed to volunteer, like to put somebody's name in? Yeah. Like, would any of us be allowed to do that? There's no conflict of interest or anything like that? Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Manager of Operations, the early budget approval for the 2016 for holder replacement. The recommendation is that council give the early budget approval for September 2016 in the amount of $200,000 from the Equipment and Reserve Fund for the purchase of the holder replacement as slated for the 2017 in the 20-year capital plan. I believe the recommendation should read up to in the amount of up to $200,000 for clarification purposes. May I have a mover on that, please? Councillor Thompson, second Councillor Hammett. I'm sure we discussed it to oblivion this morning. So, all in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Manager of Development, not Engineering. Subject matter, Natural Resource Canada Energy Innovation Program Clean Energy Innovation Grant. Recommendation, council direct staff to submit the information form and prepare a report to council on the scope, budget requirements, and administration of the Clean Energy Innovation Grant. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Hammett, Councillor Thompson. Discussion, Councillor Butler, then Councillor Hammett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say, although grants are always a great thing, we are responsible for paying half the cost, even when we do get a grant, and this is an extremely costly project that I haven't seen a real need for when it was presented to us this spring, Prime Minister Love. It wasn't something that I felt was a priority, and with money being so tight, I really don't want to see even staff time used to go down this road, so I will be voting against it.
Councillor Hammett and Councillor Tripp.
If the application goes in now, I'm not sure, does it say when there's a deadline for this?
October 31st.
October 31st. And so, I'm sure, would we even hear back before the end of this year, in 2016? Would it be awarded? And if so, how long do we have, like, we have to know in advance what we're asking for and how much we're asking for, and have plans on what we would do with that money, I presume. And then if we do get approved, is there a timeline on, like, does it have to be completed within 2 years or 5 years or?
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could. Number one, we're just providing the level of interest in the grant. We're just kind of providing our notice that we're providing notice to the grant folks that we have a project that we may be interested in applying to this. We haven't applied a dollar amount to it. We will probably find out within 6 months, typically. At that time, council is still not obligated to undertake the project. Council might look at it and find more information out and say, you know what, this doesn't fit. We've done the notice, we've researched it. We're at the point right now where we want to decline the process or continue on with the process. And that's where council would hold the you know, the final decision before council was we would come back to you with a report that would say, all right, council, we have this project. Our electrical engineers have ascertained that here's our options. They would provide the best recommendation to council, and you could apply this grant funding to it, or you could simply choose to not do the project, or you could send the money back, or you could do all kinds of different things. So that kind of lays it out for council. You got a lot of time to look at this.
So we're not committing any staff time or resources at this point, just to put in the application?
Just the application form.
And then until, like, in 6 months' time, if we get a yes or a no from them, at that point, council could decide whether or not we wanted to spend the time and account for the staff time working on this.
We have the option to pull the plug. Councillor Tripp and Councillor Butler.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that was the point that I was concerned about, was how much staff time would they need to put into submitting this application. And of course, this says here, prepare a report to council on the scope, budget requirements, and administration. So is that going to be a two-step process? How much time? I from what we heard today, I think we know that there's a lot on the staff's plate. So is this putting more on there that maybe at this point in time they could do without? Or how invested are they in this? And how much time would they be taking?
At this point, we haven't put a whole lot of time into it. We've just reviewed the grant and the requirements, and first step, we would be looking, we'd be talking to Alex, our electrical engineer, and looking at the feasibility of it. And I mean, we might at first level just decide that maybe it's too much, and we don't, you know, we haven't put much time into it at all at this point. Just like to point out that this grant in particular is for clean energy innovation, and it's for setting up our substation to accept other forms of energy. That's what this grant is for. It's not for the substation per se. It's for setting up, basically to be kind of a plug and play for other sources of clean energy.
So based on the information form would be the first step. So based on whatever comes back, only then would the report be submitted to council. So you may not be obligated to do the report should it fall through based on Alex Love's recommendations. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, we have no commitment. Okay. All we're doing is we're putting together and saying, you know what, we have a project that may qualify, okay. And that's all that it is at this point.
Yeah, so it may not go anywhere, so of course there's no report to council then. Thank you. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Your Worship. If we don't put in the application, then for sure we're not going to get anything out of it. And if it's, I don't have any issue with making those kinds of applications, because the possibility is that we may be approved and we may be able to find reasonable money, may not cost as much as some of us might be thinking it might cost. So I think we have everything to gain and nothing to lose by giving staff the authorization to proceed.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dee Dee. I think it's a first step in moving towards cleaner energy. If we have our substation and our infrastructure in place to receive clean energy, that's the first stage into developing a second project similar to Sun Mine that we saw in Kimberley last year. That is a smaller community, and they have an amazing solar project there. So this could be phase one. It's a federal program. This is not the first year they've offered it, so I imagine it's going to be available in another year or 2 years, and then we can go to stage two, which is actually probably set up some kind of solar project similar to or even bigger than Kimberley, and we can apply it to maybe it's going to be even more, but if we can get funding to a maximum of $5 million, that's pretty nice. It's not, and yeah, might have to borrow the other revenue to balance it, but I still think it's worth us starting to move towards. This is the first step towards moving towards a clean energy system.
Councillor Butler, then Councillor Hammond.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually had the privilege of talking with someone that was quite involved with building the original substation that's there right now. And my question would be, because his question was, how is the substation that we have right now not available to accept any of these clean energy, whatever project council might have on the books for wanting to put this substation in. The one that we have right now was built to a larger capacity than what was needed at that time, and it still has capacity available in it. He didn't understand how this new one would be any different to be able to accept these types of clean energy that the substation can't already do. So that would be one of my questions. The other issue I have with getting the grant is that the project was presented to us as costing about $2.2 million, and half of that is $1.1 million that the taxpayers still have to come up with. And Alex Loves, from what I heard from him at that time, although it wasn't recorded, I did make notes of it, and he said that that would involve a rate increase to the taxpayers on their electrical bill that would be paid back over time as we were able to make more money on the transmission of power and buy more power from Fortis, but there would be an initial increase on rates, and I don't see that as a benefit to the taxpayer.
Councillor Hammond?
This grant is for clean energy innovation to promote sustainable economic growth. It doesn't specifically say we have to replace our substation. We can go ahead now and apply for the grant, and in 6 months' time, if we have a yay or nay, maybe we can look at possibly looking at even if our substation has got more capacity for power, maybe we can turn around and find a corporate sponsor, like Kimberly did, who would assist with a solar farm, even a small solar project that would tie into the existing substation. So just because we have the grant doesn't mean it has to be applied to the substation. We can look at other ways to. No?
Councillor Ross?
I don't know. I can ask the staff, but normally when you write a funding proposal, you have to use money for what you're setting out in the proposal. It can't be we just want the money for this or that. We have to be very specific. I imagine that's the way that's the way most proposals are. And I understood that our substation, where it was situated, it's not about the capacity, it's about where it's situated. It needs to be moved or raised, and that's what this is going towards. So that it's more secure in the long term. That was my understanding.
Manager of operations.
Manager of operations. Go ahead, Mr. Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarification, the City of Grand Forks does not have a substation for the utility. It has a switchyard, so it's very different in capacities, and we have different points from Fortis with different voltages, and that's what the switchyard controls with reclosers. And not to get too technical, but we don't have a substation ourselves.
Councillor Butler, unfortunately, I'm not going to allow you to speak to it more than twice already. Sorry. I'm invoking you 2 times. We have a lot
as
on
long
our
as the
agenda.
rule's the same for everyone, that's fine.
Well, I'm watching, so there's 3 councillors that have spoken to it twice already. So we have to move on. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Councillor Butler's opposed. Motion is carried. Moving along to our next subject matter, which is the development permit application to place 2 C-cans with a roof over top on property located at 7920 Donaldson Drive from our Manager of Development Engineering. Recommendation is council receives the report and approves the development permit application for the property legally described as Lot 1, Block 14, DL 520, Plan KAP 1339, located at 7920 Donaldson Drive, subject to compliance with city bylaws and in substantial compliance with plans presented in the application.
That's it.
And we already beat that one to death too this morning. Unless there's anything. Okay, may I have a mover on that one first, please? Councillor Ross, Councillor Thompson. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Now to our Manager of Development Engineering again, the temporary use permit renewal request from Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, agents for Krem Holdings, owners of the property. The recommendation is that council receives staff's report and approves the renewal of the temporary use permit for a further 3-year term, and directs staff to prepare a temporary use renewal permit and send the signed documents to land title for registration on the title. May I have a mover on that, please? Councillor Butler, Councillor Thompson. Discussion, Councillor Hammond.
Seeing as this commercial property is being used as a church, is this a tax exempt situation?
That was actually the reason we brought this report back, was because Councillor Thompson had asked for clarification on that. They could be tax exempt if they were applied for it, but they have not. So they have been paying commercial taxes on that property.
Any other questions? All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Former Manager of Development Engineering, again, the pavement rehabilitation for 22nd Street, Highway 3 to 78th Avenue. The recommendation is council receives a report for discussion and decision. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Hammond, seconder. Any discussion? Councillor Butler.
Question for Manager of Operations through you, Mr. Mayor. When I looked this up, and I see Mr. Allen's getting up the chart, but I saw it was listed under borrowing for this year. So I just wanted to clarify that this project would be paid for through borrowing?
Initially, it was scheduled for borrowing, but that was as a multi-utility project. It doesn't qualify under the borrowing bylaw for a multi-utility project.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm the one that brought this issue forward. I've driven up and down it a few times, and it's not a pleasant experience. And I understand that it's not a pleasant experience when you're driving or being taken out of town by ambulance and they have to drive down that street. Having said that, I believe the pavers have probably come and gone for this year. And so if we were to persist that this project be completed this year, it would be very, very expensive. And so I think that if this street can be prioritized, number one, for the 2017 paving program, and that it can be completed as early in 2017 as reasonably possible, I would accept that. I wouldn't bug anybody anymore about that.
To our CEO, Mr. Allen.
Mr. Mayor, it is identified in 2017 and the 20-year capital plan the council's approved. We have 22nd Street paving from Highway 3 to 78th Avenue. We have an estimated price of $350,000 now. The budget piece will be coming back when we present the capital budget to council, but again, in 2017 you have expenditures planned at $2.6 million. What we're doing is we're working with the Chief Financial Officer to reconcile the numbers to make sure everything's in order, but that's what you'll see as part of that capital plan. You have already planned to do that. I think what we're talking about would be ideal for council to provide early budget approval, so as we move through that process we can hit the contractors when they're first starting the season, so we're going to get a more favorable price than at this time of year when everybody wants to pay last minute, they want to see what they can get it for, and generally prices go up a little bit. So if we can get them early in the season when they haven't been working and they can plan and secure jobs, we may get some favorable pricing, so I would recommend that council hear that as an early budget approval for 2017, even though it's already approved in your 20-year plan. So presented to council probably in January.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
So do we need to give that authorization tonight?
It would be nice for council to accept that recommendation from staff to bring it forward for early budget approval. I think we can have a report. You have this report before you. It's including your 20-year plan. We can simply submit the report to council if that's the wish of council. So if you would like to pass a resolution tonight, that would be helpful for us.
Okay. I think we have a resolution on the table, but I would be prepared to.
We better finish that one first.
But I would, yeah, be prepared to bring forward a second resolution for the early budget approval.
Okay, so all in favor of the report? Anyone opposed? So carried.
So I would put forward a resolution that the, I guess it would be for all paving, would it, Mr. Allen?
For 22nd Street paving?
Just for 22nd Street?
Yes,
Okay.
at this point right now, because then we know this one, we'll probably bring forward more information to you, but at least this one will have it on the books for early.
Then I would pass a resolution, or put forward a resolution that council give early budget approval for the paving of 22nd Street from Central Avenue to 78th Street for 2017, and that it be a priority.
Do I have a second? Councillor Ross. Discussion, Councillor Butler.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff, I'm just wondering, did we need to put a dollar value on that? And I was looking through the reports. I thought that it had come in higher. I thought it was 350 a few years back, but now it had gone up to 436 or something. So I'm just wondering if we need to put that number in the motion.
Council will we'll bring forward a report, Mr. Mayor.
We will need a number.
We won't have definitive numbers until we tender it, will we?
The increase was because back when we got the initial quote, we were able to provide gravel, but that's a very costly addition, and it would cost us probably another $100,000 just for the gravel alone. And so we're looking at the different options of overlay, full depth reclamation, and mill and replace. So what we can do is perhaps bring together some options for you and some different price points for those, and then you can make a decision on how you'd like to move forward with that.
Are we still looking at any form of infrastructure on that? Because there was discussion at one point.
That's what we'll have to consider is what is the likelihood of development in that region, in that area of the community? What is the current life expectancy of the assets underneath the roadway? And what type of risk are we going to be taking with those assets? So for instance, 68th Street, council took a little bit more risk. They did a couple repairs on the pipe, and now we're going to stretch out the life of that pipe. We're going to get a little bit more life out of it. The water main is already undersized. If we had a pavement replacement for 15 to 25 years, council will be asking, is it realistic for that water main to last for another 15 or 25 years? Based on the condition assessment, all of that stuff will be considered by council. We could always do improvements there, and that would jack the price up to over $1 million to do a full utility project, but there's going to be times where nice to have, and what we can actually accomplish, because again, this is a...
But assessment has not been done yet.
Yes, all those condition assessments have been done. So what we've done is the engineers have said to us, here's the life expectancy of all your assets. Mm-hmm. Then we put together the plan based on the priority and the risk of council. Then what we say is we put together the budget for that for the long term. We might, look at some of those water mains and pass a little bit more life on them, because we do know that they will last a little longer. Depends on how frequently it's breaking, what are some of the problems. The manager of operations will work with the manager of engineering, and they'll work out they'll have the full report to council to see what it looks like.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried.
During the winter, we can just pack the potholes with snow.
Okay, here, I'll just ask the question, so we don't have any surprises. Okay. On our information items, the Manager of Development Engineering, a memorandum update on the sludge maintenance options. Recommendation, Council received a memorandum from the Manager of Development Engineering regarding the update on the sludge management options for information. May I have a mover on that, please? Councillor Ross, Councillor Thompson, seconder. Discussion, Councillor Butler.
Yeah, I'm just concerned here because it's being farmed out to urban systems. This is going to be a costly report. I was just interested in knowing where staff was at with this, and that was the motion that was passed, was for staff to bring back the report, not to go to urban systems, because it usually comes back with thousands of dollars price tag.
To our CEO, Mr. Allen.
Mr. Mayor, and I can appreciate that. In all fairness, though, this type of engineering, sludge management, is something that I would only ask professionals, engineers to report to you on, not our staff, because they just manage the process. I mean, our manager of engineering and development has a specific background in discipline. Our manager of operations has a specific background, but they're not. This is a specialized engineering, and it involves multiple applications. So, in order for council to get a proper report, it would require the engineers to deliver it, because we're not qualified to deliver that report.
Councilor Butler.
My second time to speak to it, so I better make sure I cover everything.
Cover it all.
Yeah, I was wanting to know what reports we already had from urban systems, what staff had done up to this point with this project, what other options staff is already aware that we have looked at. I just want to know what staff knows. I don't want to know anything out above and beyond that. I don't want urban systems to come back with other stuff. I just want to know where staff is at with this, where the city's at, what we know right now, and have access to those reports that have already been submitted. I don't want to spend any more money at this point.
Thank you. Okay. Unless there are any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, we could, if it please, we have the report that Urban Systems delivered. They were here and reported on it. That is available, and it will be on videos from Les as well, but we could have the minutes from that meeting. But there is a report from Urban Systems in relation to that, the disposal of the biosolids. And they were here and reported, I think, 3 options to council, and from our perspective, staff, that's all we have. We've talked about a couple ideas which would be interesting to look at, but reality-wise, it's just conversation. It's not us, making a recommendation to council, because whether we could give it to the farmers or the orchard people and let them use it for accelerating growth, we don't know what that would have, what the effects of the heavy metals would potentially be on the ground conditions. So there's all kinds of engineering that goes into that. So, but the only thing information we have is what Urban Systems has presented to us at this point.
Councillor Ross.
I mean, this is a perennial problem for municipalities coast to coast and around the world, is what you do with sludge or human waste. And many things have been tried, and it's still a problem. I think there are technologies out there. That's where I think that Sustainable Communities Conference and even UBCM is an opportunity for us to speak with other municipalities and just to keep our ears open to what are other municipalities trying that is new and different and more organic and less harmful to environment. Sludge, spreading sludge on wildlife habitat and on agricultural land is quickly becoming a no-no for many, many, many reasons. So I think we still have opportunities to learn something here. I forget what urban systems were recommended actually, and so where could I see that report, just so I can refresh my memory?
Sure, we can recirculate it to council.
Yeah, if you could just do that.
So you had mentioned there were 3 options, so was there no decisive?
Well, there was a consent, like at the time council wanted us to continue, I think it was prior council, and they wanted us to continue on considering the GO2s, because what we were doing is we were taking it out of the ponds, and we're going to start to dry it. As we start to dry it, then we have to understand what we're going to do with the product then, because the biosolids have to be they have to go somewhere, and there's land application. It can be land application on city lands. It can, the First Nations now. There's been a moratorium because of what was going on in Maint with the application outside of that without consultation with First Nations. A lot of communities are dealing with this, and a lot of them will store their landfills. They're just basically passing the problem on for future years so they can deal with it. Other areas with higher concentrations are creating like what's called overgrowth. We see that in Kelowna. People are using it in their gardens for ornamental purposes. Some communities have used it where they give it to the community for top layering their lawns for using less water, so it'll there's all kinds of things. People might say, oh my, this is gross, but what we have to deal with is, first of all, we've got to get out of the ponds because the ponds are filling up and there's no more capacity in there. So the first thing that has to happen is there's garbage and everything else that has to come out of there. Then once it's drying into geotubes, that'll give us a couple of years to figure out what we're going to do with it, because it's going to take some time, and then it'll be a lesser product. We'll have to deal with some odor control and deal with some of those pieces, but it'll allow the sewage treatment plant to operate effectively, because right now the manager of operations and his team have basically an island, a new delta forming in the sewer ponds, and the water's not cycling properly.
That was my concern, because what are the timelines? Is there an expediency required here? Because I know government does work slow, but on the same token, when you mentioned there's 3 options and we haven't decisively decided on any.
I think this is in the 20-year plan
It's for next year.
for next year, and I think if council does not, it's going to take considerable community consultation to figure out where we're going to apply it, because just like you heard today in council, there's going to be a whole bunch of people not in my backyard ever, and you are going to face that. They're not going to want it no matter what the case is, whether it's on farmland or on the airport land or on anything that can protect the aquifer.
Except if it's not resolved, there will be in their backyard.
Well, exactly. We all, it's the community's responsibility, so we have to find an effective solution. And an effective solution works for the city.
So it's still a work in progress.
Yes.
Councilor Tripp.
So would a report from Urban Systems help you in making, in bringing forward suggestions of alternate solutions for us?
If we could do this, if we could submit the report that Urban Systems sent in, if council can read that and see what council's thoughts are. If council is not happy with that, then we can bring it forward again for further discussion. I think right now we're talking about, Urban made a recommendation, council asked us at the time to move on it. The new council is now, if this council wants to take a different direction on it, by all means, then I think we're going to have to consider what that looks like. Because there is a bunch of regulatory requirements around that, because of the heavy metals and how you can apply it, and regulatory requirements.
I like Councillor Ross's idea. Instead of spending money ourselves on consultants, let's consult with people at UBCM and Sustainable Communities and see what other people are doing, other communities are doing, and let them spend the money on the consultants, and then find out what's happening. And then see what the trend is and where the new technology is going to take us.
Councilor Thompson.
I won't put the resolution forward at this particular moment, but I'm thinking that perhaps it might be wise to defer this to the next regular meeting of council, with staff circulating the report from Urban Systems. Council would then have had an opportunity to read it, and we could discuss the options that are included in them, and if there aren't any that we like, then go forward at UBCM. And that's not going to preclude us from doing that at any rate, but at least we would have the information that our our engineering firm was recommending. So I think I will put forward a resolution to table this matter until the next regular meeting of council, and that staff recirculate the Urban Systems report.
We have a resolution on.
There's no discussion on the tabling motion that takes precedence over the
So we
we
all in favor of that motion? Anyone opposed? So next, the manager of development engineering. Memorandum update on the proposed Tim Hortons and Esso station. Recommendations, council received a memorandum from the manager of development engineering regarding the update on the proposed Tim Hortons and Esso station for information. And over, please. Councilor Hammond, Councilor Butler. Any discussion? Do you have a question right away, Councilor Hammond, or will you wish to have Mr. Smith give us his?
No, I was just going to suggest that maybe it could be explained, because
Yes.
even though we don't have a lot of people in the gallery, I'm sure there's people watching, and we have had a lot of inquiries from people as to the status of that property.
Great. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You have the memorandum in front of you, and I'll essentially that's the guts of it, and I'll just go over it very briefly. 2015, 2016, they're having discussions ongoing with respect to Petromax and the development of these properties for Tim Hortons and the Esso station. April 2016. I'm sorry.
You're on.
I have a bad habit of mumbling, and I apologize for that. So here we go again. 2015, 2016, discussions took place with the applicant who was interested in this development. And finally, in April 2016, an offer to purchase came forward for the property from Petromax, and the offer was subject to the conditions of a development permit being met. Some extensions were granted over the last 6 months due to MOTI, that's the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, approval and traffic access and design issues that are related to the development. In May 30th, Council may recall, you considered a development permit application for the proposed Esso station in Tim Hortons, and it was approved, subject to MOTI approval. The approval of a development permit is also contingent on the works and services agreement being executed, which would be between the developer and the city, pertaining to municipal and/or MOTI site works being required, standards being met, and securities being provided to assure the work gets done properly. So then we got to June 2016 of this year, and the development permit was referred to MOTI, and they approved the development permit, but subject to approval of their highway access permit. Now, a highway access permit is a little more complex. It requires completion of a TIA. This is something that we all can learn from. TIA means Traffic Impact Analysis.
Transient ischemic attack. I'm saying it's a mini stroke.
Okay, there you go.
That's who you're talking to.
So the developer's required to provide that, and it was completed in July of 2016, and subject to agreed upon access and modifications. The highway upgrade design for Highway 3 needed to be undertaken, and as I mentioned before, securities to guarantee completion of the work, and that would be part of the works and services agreement that would have to be executed before a building permit got issued. So, since, we're going back here, but since May of 2016, MOTI has expressed a preference for a joint access, reciprocal access to Highway 3 to serve the proposed development site and the adjacent vacant site to the west. The two access options were pursued, but joint access and cost sharing after, I would mention after lengthy discussion and lengthy talks with the vacant owner, they declined to be involved with that. So in essence, that access road would be provided on the developer's property, with the other property having the opportunity to have the joint access at a later date and share those costs at a later date, whatever transpired there. So we're at August. This is a major event here that has made this application look like we're getting really close. And I'll have you know that August 24th, 2016. Communication was received from MOTI advising the Petromax that the approval of the access on the proposed development site will be granted, subject to the official final drawings and approvals by MOTI. And Petromax was made aware of this and is going to discuss with their consultant and may be in a position to finalize a land purchase within the next few weeks. That would enable a works and services agreement, as I mentioned, short-term highway access, which would be right in and right out access at the immediate time, and then a building permit that could happen this fall. Now, the design engineer, Petromax, is expected now to complete a final highway construction drawing, which we call Stage 2. So their temporary interim access would be just a right-in, right-out access, and that would go through till next spring. But by next spring, they're going to need a more sophisticated design, which would be construction drawings for a highway widening and a left turn access, and they're expecting to get those drawings done in 2016. And updated information should be forthcoming soon on that. We were hoping that Petromax might be moving forward with the purchase sooner, right after the interim access approval, but they are moving forward with the more detailed designs now, and there were some delays due to the scheduling of the consultant, but we're assured that they're going to be coming forward fairly soon. So in conclusion, I would just suggest, I think, as far as Grand Forks is concerned, we've completed the development permit, as I mentioned, but I think we're doing everything we can do at this point to facilitate the project. There's regular contact going on between us, the developer, and MOTI, and the next couple of weeks will be critical. Thank you.
If I could just add, Mr. Mayor, MOTI has been exceptional to work with. People have been coming in off holidays to facilitate this. Dave Smith has been working to meet with the developer outside of normal working hours. All of our staff have been working to accommodate this because this project is not one that is only one in British Columbia or Canada with this company. It is a significant, they have significant undertakings. Because the economy is right, that's why they're developing. So it has been a considerable amount of time, and I think that the weekend work that has gone into this with Mr. Smith and MOTI, Blake, I mean, my phone is buzzing all weekend because of the text messages. Friday, I think it was Friday afternoon that we finally got at about 3:30, we got the word from MOTI that they had approved the right in and the right out, and then the report is before council today. So, I mean, council is up to speed as fast as we can have you, just so you know, and the community knows that MOTI and everybody's doing this work. The one thing that the developer is cautious on, though, is making that final, pulling that final trigger, because they have, it's a multi-million-dollar project. So they want to make sure that they have all those other pieces in place, and they're close. So you know they're very close.
Councillor Thompson.
You may not be able to answer this, but Petromax is going to do the road on their property.
Yes.
Does that become a city asset?
No.
It does not. Okay.
We didn't want it.
That's a good thing. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Smith, for the updated memorandum. I appreciate it. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay, moving along now to Nadine Heiberg, subject matter letter regarding water meters and bylaw enforcement. Recommendation is council receives for information the letter from Nadine Heiberg regarding water meters and bylaw enforcement. May I have a mover, Councillor Thompson? Seconder? Councillor Ross? All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Canadian Cancer Society, subject matter correspondence regarding the invitation to endorse the Society's recommendation that the BC government expand the scope of BC's Tobacco and Vapor Products Control Act to prohibit use in outdoor public places province-wide. The recommendation is that Council receives for information the consideration of endorsing the Canadian Cancer Society's recommendation that the BC government expand the scope of BC's Tobacco and Vapor Products Control Act to prohibit use in outdoor public places province-wide. May I have a move on that, please? Councillor Tripp, seconder. Anyone? Councillor Krog. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Regional District of Kootenai boundary. Subject matter, boundary area agriculture plan and food security project update and gas tax calculations. The recommendation is council receives for information the update from the Regional District of Kootenai boundary regarding the boundary area agricultural plan and food security project. May I have a mover on that, please? Councillor Thompson, seconder, Councillor Krog. Councillor Krog, discussion.
Yeah, just when you look at some of the, I know we're receiving it for information, but when you look at how they're looking at the costs and who contributes what, that if you look at it, based on population, 33%, so that would make us pay X amount of dollars, but if it's based on actual agricultural land within the city of Grand Forks, we have 0.4, I assume that's acres. And the only one less is Greenwood, which has 0. Even Midway has 1.3. 0.4.
Because we've got 5 acres. And our neighbor has...
Is it in the ALR?
Yeah, well, it's in the floodplain. It's up there, it's deemed agriculture.
Okay, but if they're basing it on the ALR, and we've got 0.4. Is anybody farming your floodplain?
Yeah. But you don't pay farm tax, right? I think it goes on how many people are taxed as a farm, as a commercial farm.
Yeah, but my whole point is just when you look at the amounts of the proportion, I don't think we should be up there as high because of the amount of agriculture that takes place within the city's footprint. Good point. That's it.
All in?
Oh, just one more comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, although we don't have a lot of designated commercial farms in town, I don't think that their report, is it going to focus on backyard gardens, encouraging people to grow their own food? I mean, that type of thing I'm definitely in favor of, but I'm not sure that I want to contribute money to commercial farmland because, like you said, we don't have much.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay, our next item is the request to waive the 2016 season Angus McDonald Park use fees for the retro drive-in events, and that is from Don and Lisa Linderman. Recommendation is council waive the 2016 season Angus McDonald Park use fees for Don and Lisa Linderman for the retro drive-in events. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Butler, seconder Councillor Tripp. Discussion, Councillor Butler.
Yeah, I think this is a great event in our community, and I really love seeing it and would encourage them to continue next year. I'm just wondering, though, by providing them a benefit here, are we then entitled to have to provide the Gem and other movie theaters or people that do movies in the park? Are we providing a benefit to a business that's unfair?
Councillor Broad.
We already provide a benefit to movies in the park because they're in the park. My only question would be that it's user fees for Angus McDonald, but it's not actually on the field. So is that, should we even be looking at charging them because it's not on the field?
It doesn't need to be maintained.
Yeah.
You're saying. Yeah. No. Oh, well, I suppose they are.
Possibly.
To staff with that question.
Does anybody have any?
So do you want to, what was it, which question do we want to?
Waive the 2000.
Oh, just why is there park user fees when it took place? It says Angus McDonald, but it's outside the fencing for Angus. Is it because they used the washrooms? Did we have staff open up the washrooms?
Is it in the, on the community use property?
Yes.
It is, yes.
Okay. So we don't necessarily have user fees for that. We have them for the park.
Well, we have user fees for profit.
Was it for profit?
Businesses.
Define profit.
Well, yeah, I know exactly. So it's, I mean,
There was
it can be something as little as whatever it is they take in per showing. It can be whatever.
Has it been determined?
I believe we were asking them for, it's $250 a year we charge for like businesses to use. So if the fair comes, that's what they're charging. Or is it a day? Sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head. But for this particular event, we were saying $250 for the course of the summer. It didn't require any work from staff.
Oh, this is way too much fun. Do they get a discount for sprinklers?
They pay more for that.
Oh, for the car wash.
Car wash.
For the retro car wash.
Oh, we had a retro car wash that.
Yeah.
Sprinklers pay more.
No, I think it's an awesome, it is an idea, and maybe if they do continue in the future, and they do make a profit, then maybe we could ask for something. But this is their attempt to do something, so I'm all in favor of waiving anything.
Councillor Thompson and Councillor Tripp.
Clarification, please. This request, as I read it, was for 2016.
Yes.
2016, do they have any more
No.
retro movies coming?
They finished the last one. The last September 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is rather moot for 2016. Perhaps we can get more information from the proponents as to what they're looking for, what kind of revenues they generate, an income, like we want an income, a financial statement, so that we can make a proper determination on whether or not we want to even consider waiving these fees.
Or CEO, Mr. Allen.
Mr. Mayor, I guess I have to be the Grand Forks Grinch here and recommend that council does not waive this, because you're also going to have kids soccer teams, you're going to have baseball teams, you're going to have all the teams now looking for user fees to be waived from all of your facilities. So I'm just, once you start this process, you are going down the path of everybody seeking it to be fair. And I don't believe that the ball associations or the soccer associations are for profit. I don't know, but I believe that they're just covering their costs. But I would just caution council on that, and maybe Ms. Maint, is there anybody else we'd be thinking of that would be using it?
It's actually something that we are working on right now, is our park use agreements that we have right now are outdated, and we have events like the carnival that comes through that's a big business, that's not community centered necessarily, and then we have something, so we have from one extreme to the other where we have a little, a couple, right, and they're trying to provide a service to the community. They're a very tiny business, they live in the community, so we're trying to figure out how we're going to make it, what's the sliding scale, I guess.
Did they pay for this year?
They did, yes.
Oh, they have paid for 2016. So basically, they asking for a refund?
No, I don't think so. I believe they were asking for the remainder of the season. And they're probably wanting council to consider for next year.
My recommendation would be to refer this back to staff to get all the information before we make a decision on this. I think the factual data is imperative, because once we do make a move like this, like our CEO has stated, we might be opening a Pandora's box and set a precedent which we will not be able then to back away from. Unfortunately, you've already spoken to it twice.
I'll speak to it.
Councillor Ross, I'm going to focus this on all of this because I'm tired of having long meetings.
I would use it. I was next.
Yes, you were next in line, Councillor Tripp. You're next. Absolutely correct.
Oh, so you before me now?
I was
you were.
after.
Yes.
Okay.
Because my attention shifted to this side of the room. Yes, I see Councillor Hammond. You're next after Councillor Ross. So let's get in line here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I would hope that there would be some way that we could be very gracious with these people, and what I believe is that it would foster some really goodwill in the community, because the little that I saw on Facebook, I think this And this particular event was seen to be a very, very popular one. So maybe there's a way as the staff is working on, the usage of the fields or whatever, that somehow there can be, I mean, I know we can't play favorites, but.
It's just a concern is this may be a small one, but then it can set a precedent for a larger operation, which then will snowball into a situation which we can't back out of. Councillor Ross.
I don't want to talk anymore.
Okay.
Good. I get it.
Councillor Hammond, you don't want to talk anymore?
Yes.
That was Beaujolais. Of course, sounded familiar.
So.
Good thing we're at the end of the meeting.
Should I speak for you?
Okay, so I understand we don't want to play favorites, but on the other hand, this is a new enterprise just starting up. They had a lot of issues in getting this thing off the ground. They had the wind blow down their stream one night. They got rained on by the sprinklers, and it soaked the cars and their laptop that had the DVD, I suppose, or the jump drive in it. And I think they've had a couple of wind situations. And then the first night they had a 20-foot screen, and they tried that, and then they went to a 40-foot screen. So I think they're just trying to get it off the ground. This was like a test run for them. So I don't mind forgiving the fee this year in order to get it off the ground and make it successful next year and for future years, because it potentially could turn into a really good thing. The other thing is, how much do we charge West Coast Amusements when they come into town and set up beside Dick Bartlett Park? And do we charge the Rotary when they put the Halloween bonfire on?
Mr. Mayor, I know the Halloween bonfire was put on to deflect all the vandalism that, from what I understand from the PSCAO, there was a lot of vandalism that happened downtown, and the Halloween bonfire was concentrating it to another area of, not the vandalism, but the energy.
Thank you. It really is
interesting. And I can appreciate. Yeah, I think that Councillor has a thing, but I just caution you on, because you may have a business that wants, like, what about the Jeff Theatre that wants to get forgiveness on their taxes for, they have a roof over their head, they're paying pretty high taxes.
So with your descriptive nature of your comments, they're obviously used to disappointment. They are used to disappointment, so I guess they'll be a bit more.
That's why you need video.
Consent becomes sleepy.
So I would recommend council to reject the recommendation.
I do want to talk.
Okay, go ahead.
You read this letter and just take out the words confident that the drive-in, take out the word drive-in and put in sausage stand. Or take out the word drive-in and say alternative movie theater. Or take it out and put in, ice cream, stand. Because anybody can write this letter and say that they really appreciate the patrons of Grand Forks, that they work really hard for no wages, just like a farmer, it sounds like, and, but they're not making any money, and so they're asking to be helped out. Like, if somebody is a vendor, and they're not even paying their taxes because they're struggling to get a business up and going, do all the vendors, like get a vendor's license, ask for forgiveness for a vendor's license, or they just struggle through the startup, like what size screen, preparing for a downpour, or whatever it takes. They're struggling to get a business up and running. And, I don't know how to help them without showing favoritism, but I really think that, showing this is something we need to be careful of. Retro drive-in theater, retro sausage stand.
Otherwise the lineup at the door will be a mile long.
Yeah, and I just think we encourage them to keep on going, keep on trying, applaud their efforts, but we can't set a precedence.
Now, Councillor, one more time.
Thank you, this will be my last and it won't be long. But maybe there's some creative ways then of doing this, like the staff was mentioning, maybe like 1% of revenues. Well, if there's no revenues for this year, then they have nothing to give.
Again, I
Any
would
business, you run at a loss.
caution that language, because again, that could be applied to other, so no matter what is done, we ought to be cautious.
I think I want to vote one. I think I have to.
Okay, go for it.
I believe we're precluded under the charter of benefiting, giving a benefit to a business. And so, you know, as much as we personally may like to help these people, as a council, we're precluded from doing that.
So now we call the question.
There's our out.
All in favor?
Receive from.
I'm not allowed to vote against my own motion, am I?
Okay, so let's
Yes, you
motion.
can. You totally can.
To
Yeah,
waive-
I would have to
to
remove.
waive-
No, you can vote against it.
Is
Yes, you
there,
can.
What is the resolution now?
yeah.
It's
what
new.
is
The
it?
resolution is to waive the season fees, park use fees for Don and Lisa Linderman
For this.
for the retro drive-in for 2016.
For 2016.
So, all in favor? Anyone opposed?
Of waiving the fees?
Yeah, we're opposed.
We're opposed to waiving the fees, so we can't.
We can't waive the fees.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the motion.
It's moot.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So, what was the,
4 to 6.
what was the vote count then? Sorry, so who voted? Who
I
voted
think I
in?
have to vote in favor.
No, you don't. You can put a motion on the table. and I
Councillor
realize, and-
Tripp and I voted in
Now you're gonna have to
favor.
go home and read
Councilor
Robert's
Tripp and
rules.
Councilor Broad voted in favor, and the rest
Okay.
voted against it.
Okay,
All right.
so you have the information you need, Sarah?
Yes.
Everybody spoke at least a half a dozen times.
I spoke once, but I never got an answer to how much the charge was supposed to be.
Clarify if the motion is defeated.
The motion was defeated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
It's okay.
Okay, we have nothing under the bylaws section, so nothing under, yes, we do have something under late items. Okay, so may I have a motion, which is to change the administrators on the MasterCard account? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Ross. All in favor? Opposed? So carried. Okay, now we move on to question period from the public and the media. And again, my normal spiel, which is I caution everyone to contain the conversation and the questions to the subject matter on this evening's agenda. Having said that, go ahead. Lady in the front row.
Kate Sailors from the Grand Forks Gazette. Just for clarification, so item 8E, it says, and further that council waives the development permit fee of $200. That did not happen.
That was not part of the resolution.
Okay, so the resolution is just the first part.
Yes, it was discussed in this morning's committee of the whole, and it was dropped off.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the gallery?
Congratulations to Councillor Hammond for turning your microphone into a squeaky toilet. So I can't get a break on my taxes for giving you free council videos, I guess. It's okay, it's just a joke.
Okay, without further ado, if there's nothing else, may I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Ross. Second, Councillor Butler. All in favor? This meeting is adjourned.